And this is from Steve Collins. Steve, thank you for sharing this over on the Twitter. And this is from Ars Technica, an outlet that we turn to a lot for our net neutrality news and our municipal broadband news. If you're new to this show and you're wondering what exactly I mean by that, so we cover a lot of net neutrality issues and a lot of issues pertaining to municipal broadband. What is municipal broadband? It is city-owned internet, meaning that instead of a big cable company dictating your internet, which in a post-net neutrality world is very dangerous because net neutrality is the policy that assures a free and open internet, kind of like flowing water or a telephone call. Without it, they can discriminate how fast certain websites load or don't load, what kind of internet service you get as a customer, and what kind of service you get as a content provider as well. It basically completely eliminates the democratic nature of the internet. That's what a post-net neutrality world does. So municipal broadband takes the internet out of these big cable companies' hands, puts it into the hands of cities and municipalities who will write net neutrality into their charter. So it ends the net neutrality war once and for all. But here's something going on. FCC data fails to count 21 million people without broadband, a study finds. The FCC says 21 million Americans lack broadband, but a study found it's actually over 42 million. The FCC's broadband data drastically underestimates the number of Americans without access to home internet service, a new study has found. The actual number of people lacking home broadband access is about twice as high as the FCC estimates. The FCC has said 21.3 million Americans live in areas without access to fixed broadband. But FCC data is widely known to be flawed because it counts an entire census block as served, even if only one home in the census block can get service. So the actual number is 42.8 million. Now, why would the FCC do this? Why would the FCC just lie about how much broadband access Americans have? Well, there's a number of reasons. First of all, the big cable companies hate the idea of city-owned internet, like what I just talked about. They really don't like that. Here's another thing they don't like doing. They don't like building in rural areas where they feel like they're not going to get a return on investment. They don't like doing that. So what's likely to happen in those rural areas if people want broadband and the big cable companies aren't willing to provide it for them? Well, they do it their own way. They get city-owned internet. So you're thinking, well, why does the big cable company care? They didn't want to go there. So why not just leave that alone? Well, because when an area gets city-owned internet, other people hear about it and they find out how freaking good it is. They find out that, oh, wait, internet infrastructure isn't really this complicated. We can build incredibly high-quality internet infrastructure right in our city. A town of 7,000 people in Massachusetts did it. Little towns in Ohio and Minnesota did it. Sandy, Oregon has it. Chattanooga, Tennessee led the way with it in 2014. They have the best internet in the world pretty much in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and they pay less than what most people pay for their cable. It's very doable. So what happens is, let's use Massachusetts as an example. Charlemont, Massachusetts gets municipal broadband in a town of 7,000 people because Comcast doesn't want to go there. What happens next? Boston sees that. Cambridge sees that. And now those places are looking to municipal broadband. Sandy, Oregon gets municipal broadband. They see how great it is. Guess who wants it now? Portland, Oregon. Guess what state has the most municipal broadband projects going on? Not California. Not Oregon even, not Washington State, none of these blue states. Tennessee. Tennessee, a very red state. Why is that, you ask? Well, because, again, Chattanooga led the way, so everyone else sees how great Chattanooga's internet is, and they want it. So big cable, they don't want to go in these rural areas because they're worried about their bottom line, but they certainly don't want these rural areas building city-owned internet because then more people are going to want it. So that's why they don't want the FCC to be honest about how many Americans lack access to broadband. They don't want that number to be out there. What's another reason that the FCC might want to lie about the actual broadband numbers? Well, when they repealed net neutrality in 2017, Ajit Pai promised that without the shackles of net neutrality, even though, once again, we have had net neutrality since the advent of the internet. I'll repeat that because it's worth repeating. We have had net neutrality since the advent of the internet. Whenever somebody tries to tell you that net neutrality was invented by Barack Obama in 2015 and we only had it for 2015 to 2017, that's not even remotely close to being true. We've had assumed net neutrality since the advent of the internet, but it wasn't solidified into law. It was just assumed that all cable companies had to follow net neutrality laws. Around 2014 or so, I believe it was Verizon who led the charge. They decided, hey, wait, we technically don't have to follow net neutrality, and we could make more money if we don't. So they took the FCC to court. They won the court case. They were like, yeah, FCC, they're right. There's really nothing that makes you able to enforce net neutrality. But if you designate the internet a Title II designation, which means it's a utility, then you can have net neutrality. The FCC said, okay. Now, the FCC around this time was run by Tom Wheeler, who was a cable lobbyist himself. He didn't want to designate the internet a Title II because he knew that that would preserve net neutrality pretty much forever. And he didn't want to go that far. That would disrupt his cable lobbying buddies. But the public demanded it. They demanded it so hard, they crashed the FCC's website. So at the 11th hour, Tom Wheeler and Barack Obama did the right thing, and they gave us net neutrality because we were loud. Had we not been loud, we wouldn't have gotten it. Ajit Pai came in 2017 under the Trump administration, repealed net neutrality. And we've not seen the true effects of a post-net neutrality world yet because it's going to be a slow boil and because we're fighting it at the state level. California has a net neutrality bill that's out there that's moving forward. Big cable's fighting it tooth and nail. There was a court ruling recently that struck down reinstating net neutrality, but it also ruled that states could bring their own net neutrality laws in. There's a bill in California, there's a bill in New York, there's a bill in Vermont, and there's some other bills out there as well in other states. If California and New York get it, well, that screws the cable companies because they can't unroll packages that don't abide by net neutrality if they can't put it in New York or California, some of the biggest customer bases in the country. So that's why we haven't seen the effects of a post-net neutrality world. People are fighting on the front lines. And because it's going to be a slow burn. They're not just going to totally dismantle the internet as you know it. It's going to take time. So that's where we're at. But when net neutrality was repealed, Ajit Pai promised a bunch of jobs and a bunch of innovation and more broadband access. Well, guess what? None of that's happened. His promise of jobs was a straight up lie. In fact, it's the opposite. AT&T has been cutting jobs. So has Comcast. Broadband has not been expanding. Over 42 million Americans don't have access to broadband. 42 million. So maybe that's why the FCC might not want to be totally honest about the number of people who don't have access to broadband. Because Ajit Pai made all these promises of broadband expansion, and none of it has happened. In fact, and we've covered it on this show, the opposite has happened. So there you go. The Trump FCC deliberately misleading the people on the behalf of big cable and their own interests. And what's their own interest? Making sure they can price gouge your internet as much as they possibly can. And in a post-net neutrality world, that's exactly what's going to happen if we don't fight to save the internet. And we have to fight on all measures. We have to get city-owned internet in our cities, and we have to fight for strong net neutrality bills in the meantime. We have to do all the above. And look at radio, look at TV. Once we lose a medium, we lose it for good. We don't get it back. And if you think it's not possible that we can lose the internet, if you think it's not possible that years from now we'll be telling our children and our grandchildren what the internet used to be like, where they'll be like, really? You mean anyone could just start a show? Yeah. Anyone could just stream online and it would flow the same way other stuff flowed? Yeah. Yeah, totally. Anyone could do that. I can't believe that. That's not the case anymore. You have to be on Starbucks Inc. now to stream. You have to be on Amazon Inc. to stream any content. Yeah, that wasn't the case. There was this thing called YouTube. What was YouTube? That could be a reality, folks. Shows like this could become a thing in the past. All the independent media you know could become a thing of the past. It's a reality if we don't fight to preserve a free and open internet. And that's why that's the lane I've chosen. To try to fight for city internet, not just in my city of Pasadena, but trying to build a movement all around the country for that. And here you have the FCC misleading you for their own self-interest. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you very much, Steve, for sharing that. I appreciate that very much. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your news